right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back at it again for Dreams Money Can Buy, Season 2. We got one of my, I don't even know what to call him, like a protege. It's just like seeing this young man develop, you know, going through high school. He was a knucklehead. He's one of like the talented like characters in like those animes that he was too smart for his own good. So you're just like, I don't need to pay attention. I'm rebellious. And then like seeing him grow through college and like kind of like own his path to doing some great things, you know, creating some fly ass clothing that I'm actually wearing. I think I'm one of the few people that actually bought the beanies. I don't know why, but these are warm as hell. You should wear them right now. But yo guys, this is my guy, Jobert S. I've been practicing that because I said his name wrong all the time when we went to high school together. How you doing today, bro?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having me here, bro. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the good introduction.
So, my man, you make clothes now, right? And before we kind of like talk about that, I would have never, ever thought about you making clothes, even though you're a fly guy.
Yeah.
Ever since I've known you. So I've known you always have the fire fits, combination with the Jordans, the shoes, the hoodies. Like, let's go back to before the clothing. Mm-hmm. How did you even become a fly guy? Like, you come up in school. Like, when did that come? Like, you really care about your appearance. Like, you were up there with it.
And that's funny. That's a good point that you made because I'm not someone that could have saw myself making fashion either, but I think what made me want to go into that path was noticing the ability that I do have to put good, outfits together and being able to have a good eye for what looks good or not. But I would say what honestly started that off is, you know, growing up in New York, Brooklyn, style is something that's very important, especially kind of, you know, finding your way around, definitely growing up. So I feel like that was just one of those things, you know, went to the same high school. I feel like sometimes some people kind of didn't necessarily care as much, but some people was like, all right, I'm about to go to school and make sure the fit is good. And I feel like I wasn't somebody that, even to this day, I don't really put too much thought into a fit for real. Like I'm someone that just like wakes up, look in my closet, 5 minutes, a fit is on. And I think that's something that kind of speaks to my ability or I would say like a strong skill to dress well. But I would say I definitely stem from just like seeing certain people around me. I definitely feel like I had, I was like, there's a certain, like, a couple of my brothers were pretty into fashion for sure too. So I feel like I was the youngest of 4 brothers excluding myself, so 5 in total. So kind of seeing other people dress up and get stylish, I feel like I had to find a way to get my own style. And through just kind of exploring, I feel like I was able to really see what works and what doesn't work for me. And I did feel like at a certain point, fashion, not that it was something that I was super passionate about, but I did think it came kind of easy in terms of dressing well and seeing how people receive my outfits and all that. So I think as time progressed, at a certain point when I did consider going into fashion, I was able to look back and be like, yo, a lot of people would kind of compliment me here and there, say my fit is nice. So I was like, I must have an eye for something. And I think that was a good step for me to kind of get the confidence to embark on starting Préval.
Okay, so it's a surprise because I didn't know you had like 4 other brothers. But I think that adds to, so since you were like the youngest, right? Was it one of those things where you were seeing like these guys that you're growing up with, they're wearing some sneakers, they're wearing some fits, and you started like pick your mind, it's like, all right, this is a cool fit, this is not a cool fit, but you're not gonna tell because you're the youngest. Was it kind of like that when you kind of like, because you are from like a Caribbean household, right? So money's not like ever flowing, like you guys are hustling, you guys trying to make things do. Like how did that kind of like add to it? Because then I guess when you get to a chance to make money to like purchase your own fits, does that add to it as well? Yeah, so I think that's actually an amazing question. And I think the thing that actually helped me become very good at putting outfits together was not having that many items to put an outfit together. So I think because I was the youngest, I would have older brothers that was already working, making money. They could buy expensive shit, boom, boom. But I feel like for me, it was definitely like, had maybe like 1 good pair of jeans, 2 tops, 2 pairs of good sneakers, tops. And I feel like it was one of those things where you have to get creative and know how to really switch it up. And I think definitely at college, you know, you get a little bit of campus job, you get to making money, kind of pick which clothes you want to wear. But I think earlier it was like definitely a strain on my options, especially compared to my peers, I would say. And I think what I noticed was like, even though I didn't have the bread, I think there's certain basics you can put together. Like I think in high school, I was like, let me just get a plain tee, some good fitted jeans, and some nice kicks. And that's not going to run you too much, you know what I'm saying? The kicks is already purchased. The jeans, niggas were shopping at H&M, so it's not too expensive. H&M actually has good quality, so no knock at all. But yeah, so I feel like that's how I was able to put good stuff together. And I think through me having limited options and being forced to still put good stuff together, I think that's what really tests your ability to put
you know what I'm saying, a good fit together, see what works with what, which color works with what another color. And I feel like even nowadays I'll kind of give recommendations on whether it's interior design or fit. And I feel like people may not see how certain color schemes come together, but I definitely know like growing up, I would put certain shit together, and whenever I did, it'd be like, that's when I would receive certain compliments. And again, it wasn't something I put too much effort into, but I could look back and be like, okay, these are the things that people may turn an eye toward. So I would say that kind of was the biggest entry into like, you know, being able to dress well and all that, like seeing that my brothers had certain options, but I kind of had more of a limited option. But, you know, everyone still wants to have a certain image when they step out the crib. So I think being able to finesse that was what really got me into it.
Okay. So just by like listening to what you said, I think from your earlier years, you learned the impact of style, right? Because
Yes.
I think what people kind of like compare themselves to when it looks at celebrities, people think that because you have a large closet, when you have like infinite amount of like options that you're gonna dress well. Like sometimes people just put like slap name brands together, and sometimes it looks bad. And I feel like from you, because you started with a less is more type of thing, where it's like every piece matters. Like these are all your MVP options. So it's like, all right, I got a white tee, I got a black tee, I got these Jordans, maybe like the 4s or maybe the 7s, like Olympic 7s, like they say. You're figuring out, all right, cool, I have limited options, but I can make numerous outfits out of it.
Exactly.
So I think that is what adds to your kind of like very distinct look, because not a lot of people dress like you in high school, because you didn't rely on the typical, I'm gonna dress like what I see on TVs. Like I'm gonna dress like me. I'm gonna figure that out. And I think that's what was impressive with you growing up.
And just to piggyback off that, I think there was two elements to it. I think one was like, I just didn't have the bread like that other people may have. So I feel like you mentioned, people may have the options to buy expensive stuff or like a bunch of options. And I think it just kind of not necessarily forced me, but it put me in a position to kind of, like you said, just figure out how can you get a significant level of fly, quote unquote, where you're able to at least, you know, feel confident walking out the crib, but then you're not able to, you know, get what's the most expensive or trendy thing right now. And I think that put me in a place where when I was copping shoes when I was younger, I was like, is this shit gonna be fly in the next, not fly, but can I wear it and feel confident in the next 4 to 5 years? So a lot of clothes that I have, I could wear. Anything I bought 4 years ago, I could wear now because it's not really trendy. I'm looking at the specific item for itself. So even when I was younger too, not having the budget, it's like I could shop anywhere as long as the fit is nice, then I can wear it. And I do think that adds to a certain level of like individuality and creativity in putting clothes together and not having to rely on like, all right, this is the cool name brand or this is what people are wearing, so let me just cop it. And I think that's what definitely added to like my ability to put stuff together really well.
Okay, so I want to put a pin on this because I looked at all like the schools you went to and all the jobs that you had. And I feel like this builds up to you building your line, right? So we touched on it when we came to like you growing up in your household with like five boys, which is very expensive. You didn't grow up wanting to be this creative fashion designer. It just kind of fell in your lap. What was the job you wanted to be growing up? Because when you're in a Caribbean household, if you're not in one, if you don't realize, there's really only 3 or 4 lanes they give us. It's like either you're a doctor, either you're an accountant, either you're a lawyer, or you're an engineer. So if you're not one of those 4 things, you're a disappointment, right? So for you, like especially in this household where you all need to succeed, get those degrees, what did you want to be when you were growing up when you were younger?
So the straightforward answer, I think would be a lawyer, especially when I was in high school.
That makes sense.
I went to a college prep program that was focused on teaching you kind of law, and that was the way they kind of taught you certain knowledge and information. And that was the thing my mom wanted me to do, being a Haitian mom. So it was either lawyer or a doctor, and a lawyer was kind of the path I was on. But I do think it's funny thinking back now, I feel like I had small glimpses into me being a fashion designer. And it was actually when I would try to buy stuff, but I try to buy stuff at a good price. But then a lot of times it would be like, I'm someone that's very meticulous and like particular about stuff, which I think definitely helps within like fashion or any kind of business, product, or service you're kind of starting. But what I noticed was that a lot of times I would like something, but then it'd be one small thing that I didn't like. And I'd be like, man, fuck. If I could design my own shit, man, I would like love everything I make kind of thing. And that was the most I thought about it. But it's interesting that was a thought that came to my mind several times due to me not having the access to the clothes that I wanted and the money to buy the clothes that I wanted. And just having that belief at a young age before I even had really a creative outlet or really proved my creativity. I was like, I didn't know at that very young age, like if I made my own shit, I know I would love it and other people would like it too. But that's just as far as it went. Because like you said, it's more important to have like a job with status in a Caribbean household. So I would say the short answer is being a lawyer was where my mind was at.
Okay. So I think what is interesting that you said lawyer, and for people that don't happen to know him, this man would debate since I've known him since he was a teenager on like everything, right? But I feel like those are strong skills. And this is why I just want to build it up. Like, you know, the first thing is as a consumer, you're just like, you see flaws and you're becoming a more adept consumer. Cause it's like, I think there's like 7 to 8 stages, like those like disruptors, early adopters, all that stuff. You're looking at like, I like this, but it can be done better. There's a lot of people that just buy stuff and it's like, whatever, they accept it. But you are already showing something that's against the norm when it's like, how do you look at the products, right? So that's one. Two, the lawyer thing of like, you're already getting into this whole mindset of expressing your thoughts against other people with like actual either facts or like some type of backing right behind it. So those are things that are adding up to be like, look, I'm not going to just accept something like and you have to prove to me this is quality work that makes me want to take this. So I think when it comes to your not only just especially high school, but when you went to college, I think a lot of your trials and tribulations in college molded you even better to be a person that is, you know, who you are today, especially with your you know, fraternity thing. We don't need to talk about that too much, but like all those experiences have made you who you are today. So let's talk about college, because you know in high school you were doing like the things with that fits. How was like life in college? You're still technically on this path for lawyer. What happens?
I think college wasn't a strong catalyst for me in terms of my goals and like my ideas of what I want out of life. I feel like until I went to college, I had a very limited view of what I could do or accomplish. And, you know, as they say, one quote is dreaming is the luxury of the rich, because it's hard for you to dream or imagine things you can't see. In high school, social media wasn't that like, you know, prevalent. So what you were really exposed to was just like stuff you see in your immediate circle, maybe TV. And I remember looking at certain things on TV and I would like process them as a kid as like, this is some fantasy world that doesn't really exist. It's just on TV. But when I went to CMU, Carnegie Mellon, which was like a very reputable college and it has like a lot of well-to-do or like financially well-off students, that's when I was like, shit, niggas is living really fucking good. Can I curse here?
This is my space. Like, look,
I was like, yeah. When I went there, it was a culture shock from the standpoint of like, damn, people got money. Like people are traveling to places I never heard of. Like I think what really hit me was like I'd come from like home from a vacation and I'd have conversations like, oh, what did you do? I'd be like, I just, you know, chilled at home. They'd be like, I went to X foreign country I never even heard of. I did this and that. And then I feel like for me, it was kind of like a juxtaposition of I'm this person that's coming from, especially at that point, like the hood in Brooklyn. And then it's like, I'm then going to this place where a lot of these people are like privileged to a degree. So, and one thing that, because money was always kind of tight growing up, I think I always had this mindset of like, I don't want to be that way when I get my own way. Like I want to be able to provide for myself and not have to have a limited childhood. I don't want to give my children the limited childhood that I had based on lack of resources. And I feel like once I finally was able to have the ability to dream based on seeing like, oh shit, this exists in the world, I think that's when I was locked in from an academic standpoint of like, I'm gonna do whatever I could do to get a good job so I don't gotta stress about going back home and I don't got a job and I'm just like, you know, back to where I was when I started. So I think college, the biggest thing for me was like, it showed me what was out there in the world and it gave me the confidence and like even like the ability to be able to dream something bigger than like what I may have been surrounded by back home.
Okay. So I have two questions, right? The first is when you're around these people that are like bougie to the extreme, like TV bougie, like, cause I know for us, we see like hood stars. We see like, you know, the flyboys, the scammers, the rappers. So we're used to that type of level of luxury or like, you know, cash flow, right? When you see these people that their sense of fashion or style is different where, you know, there are people that buy Louis and Gucci's, but they have the brand on them. And there's some people that have those items that are so expensive that you don't even know is Louis and Gucci, right? Yeah. So are you around those people that are kind of like those little trust fund babies? And it's kind of make you look at it as like, all right, I'm good at style, but now I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to like look at these people like, yo, there's more to it.
Yeah. So they definitely had people that was, I don't know people's pockets, but they had money. It was the thing where it's like, you don't got to have too much conversation to recognize they got bread. But I think one thing it actually showed me was that in college, I think that was the time I was dressing up the most. Like, I won't lie, I had a job. Like I said, I was finally getting some money. I feel like freshman, sophomore year, you kind of want to make a statement. So I would always be dressed nice and I would actually get a lot of compliments and I wasn't buying like the most expensive shit. So I think what that showed me was that a lot of people may need like $1,000 just to get a nice fit. And I'm like, I can do it for a lot less. So I think, again, that was kind of a testament to my creativity, but also just like my eye for like good visual aesthetic and like specifically in terms of fashion. And I think it wasn't necessarily something where I thought like I got to do more, but it was just like, oh, I see people are really got it what they can. I think it was like a Canada Goose. And like when I first heard it was like 1,000 plus or something like that. Just for the year. And I was like, I went to school in Pittsburgh, so it was cold. And I was looking for like a nice jacket. And that's when I was like, I heard the Canada Goose from like 1,000. And then I go on campus and everybody got a Canada Goose jacket. So I'm like, these niggas got bread. Yeah. And I'm like, for me, shit, buying a winter coat was like, so it was a real financial decision because they'd be expensive if you're getting a good quality.
Yeah, we in New York, so we need it for like 3 months.
Yeah, so it's like 200 already. Was like, do I want to break 200 on a jacket? So I think that was something where it was like, yeah, these people are fly, and it takes nothing against them based on how much they spending. But it's like I'm just as fly, if not more, according to other people's opinions, with way less effort and way less money involved. So yeah.
Okay, so the next thing is, and I had to double check. So during school, you were like an inventory associate at a retail like brand, and also you had like a private equity internship. You actually had 2 internships. Yeah. One is private equity, come on, and the other one is financial analyst. Oh my God, we're off right now. So I think when it comes to those type of positions, because those intern positions, you're gonna get some money in, but also you working in that retail brand where it's like, well, that brand is really minimalistic with their clothes. Like it's really they kind of bring in a lot of clothes at like a small price line. So it's like you can build style really fast. Yeah. So I feel like you were doing that around the same time, right? Like doing like the inventory associate and thing at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, because you were working there for a couple of months. And
the inventory associate and the private equity joint?
No, I just double checked. So it's kind of like back-to-back years. So the first one was inventory associate. That was 2013. Next one was 2014 was a private equity. And 2015 was the internship at that place as a financial analyst. So each of those places, you were working there for a couple months, but like, what did you learn from each of those? Because I feel like you learned some principles from each of them.
I think one thing I went through in life early, and I'm happy for, and I think college was able to help me do it with like picking different majors, dropping something, picking another, was eliminating what I liked and didn't like. I think inventory associate was retail. That was just something for me to make some quick bread. So that was something I never really saw myself doing, but I didn't really like to do that. I didn't really like that job, to be honest. But I would say what I learned from the financial analyst internship and the private equity. I actually liked private equity. The internship was cool, but I think it gave me the insight of like I can get into private equity maybe like 4 years out of graduation, because they say like you got to do investment banking for like 3 to 4 years or some shit like that, then do private equity. But what I learned from the financial analyst role was like, I don't like finance. And I was a business major in school. So I think one thing that college also helped me do was just weed out, like as I mentioned, like what are the things that I know I'm passionate about and I can be good at? And what are some things that even if I'm good at, the passion is just not there, so I can only be of high value for so long. And I think through all those internships, I learned like, this isn't for me, at least for now. And I think that was helpful because like they say, like, until you know what you're not, you can't really know what you are. So I feel like knowing the things that were huge possibilities and I can X off my list, let me know what are the other small remaining factors or small remaining paths that I can actually embark on that I would actually enjoy.
Okay. Because what that shows is like, I think a lot of times people come into the game and it's like when I asked you like a couple minutes ago, like, what did you want to be, like the lawyer thing? And eventually that dream kind of like, that your parents kind of put onto you is like, I'm probably going to do something else, right? Like it sounds good in practice, but I'm not trying to live for you guys. I'm just going to make sure I can sustain myself. And then you have the dream of, for the next generation, I'm going to make sure financially I can make sure that they're good. Now, in those two like organizations, when you're working with those things where you're learning things, like it's preparing you for that next role where it was like strategy and operations. And I feel like what I like about strategy and operations and what I see in how you do things with your clothing line is like how you do rollouts, how you do pricing, how you do sales, how you do photo shoots. It's all timely. Like when I see you do things, like people probably don't, I'm paying attention all the time on social media. So I'm like looking at your rollout. You're one of the few people that I'm actually cool with, that I have no problem investing in your brand because I see how serious you take it, right? And I think that's the most important thing. And that's why I had to ask you about those three things. Because when you're in inventory, it's mindless because you just care about the stock. But you're around clothing so much that this goes back to when you were younger. It's like, this is cool, but I can make better. And I feel like that voice is getting, you're just looking at this stuff like, I mean, this is all right, but I've seen better. And that voice is getting louder in your head as you're doing these things. So like what happens, because I feel like around this time in this strategy and operation job, that voice is loud in your head because this is right before you make that, I'm going to start making clothes. What happens during this job that makes you go, I need to start making my own clothes?
I think, that's a perfect question. I think if it wasn't for this job, I may have not actually started making clothes, honestly. And I think, so the thing about it that really pushed me to make clothes was that this was a job that from the outside looking in was like the dream job. Like a lot of people would think I was living the life. I was happy 24/7 because it was a consulting job. I got to travel many places, which I will never knock. I was able to, that's what further broadened my scope of the world and my current belief on like everything is relative in terms of like ideals, reality, like it's all based on individual perception. And I think that was one thing that really helped me have the confidence to do what I wanted without, I think one thing that really holds people down is like the fear or the concern of other people's opinions on what they're about to do. And I think through travel, I was able to realize that like nothing is really objective. And I feel like I took a philosophy class in college, which also helped me kind of with this mindset. But I feel like nothing's really objective. And just bringing it back to the job, it was something that I enjoyed for like the first year. But after a while, I was like super like unhappy, like crazy unhappy. And then we had to like travel every single week, which could be cool in the beginning, but then it got really tiring. And I think that's when I actually got first introduced to Nipsey. And he was talking a lot about like just having there was one thing too. I was listening to him and he was like, do you have control over your life? Can you make shit move? Do you have power? And at the job, it was like, I was making a lot of money, more money than I could have imagined, you know what I'm saying, growing up. But it was like, I didn't have much freedom. I didn't have the happiness. And I think the thing for me was that I was pulling all-nighters since high school, like busting my ass with the mindset of once I'm done, I'll be happy. And I think because I got to this point where I was so unhappy after doing all that work, I was like, fuck nah, I can't like settle here after like doing years and years of like work. Like in college was something that was like crazy challenging too. So I just felt like with all the like sweat equity I put in, it doesn't make sense for me to stop and be satisfied here. So from seeing that I wasn't really happy with that job and seeing how other people can see it as an amazing job, I realized like I shouldn't do things in life based on other people's approval of it seeming good. 'Cause I think many people can actually stay at a job that they're not super happy about, but if the world is giving them enough external validation, they'll be like, I'm not happy, but I guess this is what I should be doing because everyone else says it's a good thing, right? And this was like way before like entrepreneurship was super like, I guess, popular. So I feel like one thing I just kind of noticed was, this is not a place where I can be in the long run. And I think God just kind of kept tapping me on my shoulder like, yo, bro, I'm telling you, this is like, it was a weird thing where like I felt like I was meant to create Préval. And on top of this fashion, if you like kind of tap into the brand, it's a lot about inspiration, spirituality, getting a better sense of self, a better sense of like the universe. And I think I really realized that like, I noticed that many people had dreams and aspirations and myself was one in the situation, but then we had certain fears that would hold us back based on just like life conceptions that really just make us feel limited and think we must operate within a certain realm of quote unquote reality. So I feel like from realizing that, I was like, damn, I got to do this for myself. But then I also realized this is an opportunity to help educate other people that may be going through the same struggle of they have a strong urge and like calling, but then based on all these different factors in life, they're like, maybe I shouldn't do it now, or maybe this isn't for me, X, Y, Z. And everything isn't for everyone, but I did want to create a line where I felt like this is something that people can turn to either have inspiration and confidence to achieve what they want from a long-term dream standpoint, or even from a different standpoint of like, sometimes we may go through things in life, and I wanted to give people a certain level of consciousness and spirituality and understanding of self so that you can also just kind of navigate through the, daily life, and then you kind of shit it'll throw at you, but in a positive and more aligned and in tune way. So I felt like that was something that based on my time in life, I was doing a lot of meditating, a lot of like just internal work. And it honestly just ended up with me telling myself like it wouldn't make sense for me to stay at this job. I think God is really telling you to start Préval. And like I knew if I didn't, I would regret it. And I think that was the biggest thing, where I knew that if I didn't try, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So I was like, let me just give myself 2-3 years, take the best stab at it. And then if I do it and it don't work, cool, I can't regret it. But then if I don't do it, I knew I wouldn't be able to really live with myself for real, based on just how much I knew I felt God was telling me this is meant for you. So I would say that's really what it was when I was at that job, and what kind of pushed me to then start Préval.
Okay. I want to say, before I get into what I'm about to say next, that is so kind of like monumental in like that self-awareness that you have, right? Because I feel like you've always been self-aware. Like you've even had like debates online with people or like things about either reading material or like concept with like TV or movies or just your perspective on the world. And I feel like that I started off without saying like, you know, this energetic kid, very brash and stuff like that, but you've kind of like honed it into like, I think the best way to compare you to, which is very interesting, it's kind of like, I'm a Star Wars fan, so it's random, so if you don't get it, I'm sorry, I'll do the best to explain it. It's like Obi-Wan, right?
Okay.
So Obi-Wan, when he was younger, it was kind of like you. He was very talented, but he was very rebellious because like, I'm talented already. Like, I don't really got to listen to you. But as he got older, things started to make sense where it's like, all right, he was like he was kind of like Attic, and that's why he understood him. But it's like he slowed down. It's like, I understand why I do things the way I do. I'm being more meticulous. I'm going to do things in this way to make the impact that I need to. So I feel like that comparison between you and Obi-Wan was like, when you got older, it's like you don't really talk too much, but you have a lot to say. But you pick your spots a lot better than you did when you're younger. So you have a lot to say. And again, I'll be observing everyone on some Nick Fury stuff. But your kind of ascension has always been something I've been proud to see because it's like. That. You've always been talented. It's just how did you hone that talent, right? Now, getting to this, I never knew your middle name, right? So even looking at this brand and like as someone that wears some of the brand is like, how did you know you wanted to make this Preval, right? Am I saying this right? Preval. So again, because he is Haitian, so I got to make sure I get these. I want to show respect to that. So it's Préval, right? Yeah,
Préval, perfect.
Préval. So. Please tell me how you got that as a name because you kept saying that earlier in our conversation and it must mean something within you is like, I need to make this because it's really strong how you describe it on the website and I'm going to get to it. But how did you know that was going to be the name for it?
So when I made the name, it wasn't something that I had already assigned when I was thinking through the brand or the business per se. But I was thinking through like, I wanted to create something that people could find impactful and they can really like tap into when it's something that it's not just fashion. Because again, I'm not someone that is, while I dress nice, I'm not super passionate about just like garments itself. I'm someone that's actually more of like a thinker, a philosopher to a certain degree. Like I'm very much into like you said, I grew up debating to a degree. I like to just discuss different people's schools of thinking. That's actually what I really find a lot of joy in. But then again, this is what I felt would be a good avenue to really kind of tap into people through that. And I think one of the biggest goals I had was to really find a way to kind of gain influence within like the Black community. And I think one thing we really look at is music and fashion at this current time. And, you know, I didn't necessarily have necessarily the science to go into the fashion industry, the music industry. But I felt fashion would definitely be a good avenue to kind of start. And there's actually a ton of ideas that I have after Préval that I would love to do to kind of tap back into the Black community and really focus on just uplifting ourselves as people and really just helping in all ways that can really just elevate us from just like an individual and a collective sense of peace, just kind of like, you know, consciousness, spirituality, and also just help the way we just communicate amongst one another. So it kind of leads to an overall advancement of ourselves as a people. But then I also want to focus on just everyone in the world who needs some type of guidance or inspiration or some type of positive word or of encouragement or a different perspective to look at things, which I feel like life honestly all boils down to. But I'm somehow I'm forgetting want to make sure I'm answering the question still. I feel like I'm not sure if I'm still answering.
No, okay. So because you're explaining kind of like the impact that you wanted with this, right?
Yeah.
But, and I feel like in that insight, because I feel like you felt like you're going off, but we're going to bring it back.
Yeah.
It's your middle name, right? Again,
correct. Yes,
you never really, whenever you said your name, and in case I say it wrong, I'm practicing it still to this day, so it's Jobert, and then your last name is Sarai, right?
Sarai.
Sarai. So it's Jobert.
Sarai. Préval,
Préval, Sarai. And it's like, I've never heard it, but when you listen to that name, especially said correctly, that's a very powerful name, right? Yeah. So like, you're thinking about these things, you didn't have a name to it, but when you think of like your explanation on your website, and I'm going to say it, but I want you to like, when did it come to like, yo, this is a strong name, like it's very unique?
So I didn't know the meaning of Préval very much until I actually started the brand. So my dad's name is Prévoyant.
Okay.
But in Haiti, where my parents are from, I think his name is Prévoyant, but in Haiti he goes by Albert. Like they basically take your first name and make it a middle name to give you like a new first name or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I would ask him, and he actually wasn't the most helpful in terms of giving me the meaning.
Older Black.
Yeah. So that's Caribbean, you already know exactly.
Yeah.
But then through that, I was kind of doing research. I was asking my mom, and she was a bit more helpful. And then I was able to get the meaning of it, and then I just felt like based on the vision that I had for the brand and the certain kind of things I had, I feel like I was actually at that point, I was talking to my brother and I was like, I don't know if I'm someone that is a prophet or if I just manifest things. And he was like, oh, you probably just manifest stuff. But at that point, I feel like what really made me want to start it was just, as you alluded to, the meaning behind the name, which means to have foresight or provision of the future. And I feel like that's the biggest thing that if you look at a lot of stuff in the world, it's like, unless you can visualize and have a concept mentally of where you want to get to, it's very difficult or unlikely that you'll get to that point. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to you breaking through certain barriers or achieving a certain level of high value or performance. Is something that you have to really have in your mind and believe. And I think through learning the meaning behind that and seeing that it was my name, it was just like, it just kind of made perfect sense really for me to take it from there. And I think before I had the name, I had the Kingfisher bird as a brand emblem, which means peace, prosperity, and abundance. So I think those two words, I already knew what I wanted to do with the brand, and then kind of seeing what Préval meant. It's my middle name. I just felt like, damn, like the fact that it's even my middle name coincidentally, and this is already the kind of the path I want to get on, it just felt like it's the perfect name, and it was actually meant for the name of the brand. So that's kind of how I got there.
And what I find very powerful, because I've never really heard of like a Kingfisher. So it's like when people have like their logo, because like you have either name logo, then you have like the animal, like the very nice and cool animal, because it could be two-tone, so it can give more creativity. But it's like you're connecting past, present, and future, right? Because it literally is your name, which is kind of derived from your father, but it also connects to the future generations after you. So it's kind of like you're building a legacy, connecting all those three things connected to your native land of like, you know, Haiti. And it's just like spreading like positive like energy. Like when I look at your page, it's like, I feel really dope wearing this. It's like, this is like one of my favorite lines. And I'm not even saying this just because I'm in front of you, but like, it's literally one of my favorite things in my rotation, where people at work be like, yeah, I want one. It's like, I mean, I could give you guys a website. It's up to you to do that. So I think when I'm about to read, and you talked about the Kingfisher, but it's like, you know, Préval, like, not only do we want you to live with style, we want you to live with passion. Fortunately, we handle both. Now, the thing that's interesting about that phrase, right? Going by this is after us having that discussion before. The job you didn't like, it lacked passion for you. So you're making a lot of money. Everyone's like thinking you're the man. You still are the man. It's just that you are not connecting your value to a job.
Correct.
You're doing all these experiences with the internship. You learn about like style when you did the rough upbringing. But it's like you built the style. You live your whole life. You're living with style. This is your passion. We have both. It literally is all of these things that just happen to bring you to this place right now in your life. That's crazy. That is kind of like you're a prophet and you just manifest things and it's together. It's kind of like that whole two-tone thing. It's really amazing. And I just want to, it's not really a question, but just a statement. I want you to kind of like sit with that. Because a lot of times people create, you don't really get to sit with it. Like you have to think about the next thing as a creative, right? Like your next line, like I ordered like the joggers. I was waiting for those to come out. I'm going to wait to get the shorts because it's kind of cold right now. So I'm going to wait. But it's like you went from having t-shirts, long sleeves, hoodies and stuff like that. You're doing a great ass job in under like 2 to 3 years, bro. So I just want you to like hear that. This is like giving you your flowers right now. You gotta like sit with that. You know what I'm saying?
That's real. And I think that's something I struggle with. And as you mentioned, I think people building stuff a lot of times is a pressure to keep on going. So it's actually like there's very few times in which I'm able to just sit back and be like, oh shit. And I think I'm actually, you know, on official news, like I'm in the process of hiring an official team now, and I was actually doing like a bunch of interviews and like just seeing the level of applicants and people's excitement to join the brand. Like that's something that I was able to be like, oh shit, for a little bit, and then I'm back to like I gotta do this, I gotta do that. So I'm actually just very appreciative of you mentioning it, and I think I'll definitely spend some time after this interview just like taking it all in.
Yeah, as you should, because I want you to think about it, right? Like this whole platform, like Dreams Money Can Buy, it is one of my favorite Drake songs, right? But it is things that we're trying to manifest. And I feel like, you know, even for me, I've done a lot of things that are people like, you doing good, and I don't really sit with it. And I really want my peers before, you know, you said Nipsey, and we can talk about Nipsey, we can talk about Pop Smoke, and we can talk about Kobe. And out of those three, Kobe's the only one that really got to live his life and achieve a lot of things before you left. I don't really want any of my homies to feel like they never got their flowers. So that's why I want to set that aside and make sure that you hear that. You know what I'm saying?
That's another thing too, yeah. I appreciate that. Sorry to cut you off, but I think that's important too, because I even saw that somewhere where I think someone passed and someone was like, yo man, give me my flowers now. People wait for you to pass and then they want to give you all the compliments. And I think that's real, and I'm not sure what it is, but I feel like I'm someone that whenever I see someone doing something well, I like to just take the opportunity to, like, just let them know for that same reason. Not even because, like, no one knows when you're going to be gone per se, but it's like I see the value, and sometimes you can be doing something and not get the value or see that you're doing well, and as soon as someone tells you, it's like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? I really appreciate that. So I feel like just seeing that, and just it's like I don't see the reason not to, you know what I'm saying? Just tell someone that they're doing good if they're doing good. So I definitely appreciate you having that mindset. 'Cause I don't think it's something that's super prevalent at this time.
We're trying to Préval. You just prevalent Préval. But before I get into like the pieces and like the color schemes and like the designs, because those are the things that always make me come back to your like clothing kind of like collections. There's things that you've said that on the website that are like really key pieces to who you are as a person. So at Préval, we think outside the box, challenge the status quo, and highlight individuality. These are literally things that you've done since growing up. And I just like to say that out loud so we can hear it. When it's like, when you wrote this, it's like, this is going to be fire. But it's like, the thing is, I don't think people that haven't got to see you grow up, like I literally got to see you grow up from like when you were like 14 to like a grown ass man. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like watching a sports athlete go like through like the league, like the junior league, and then you go up and it's like, he lived these bars. You know what I'm saying? Like, you say you're not musical and stuff like that. I'm not either. But these are things where it's like you can feel the sincerity in these words because you live this, right? And I think that's what your brand brings, which brings me to like my real question is, you are from like an Haitian, like descent, Haitian background, but your uses of like that's Japanese symbols, right? How does that bring together? Because I think, Black people, we have such a very deep respect for Japanese culture when it comes to the animation, stuff like that. How did you bring that together when you have like these type of like designs? How did you do that?
One thing I like to focus on with the brand is making sure that every single garment has some level of inspiration, spirituality, or consciousness related to it. And I think that's one thing that I thought would be a strong value add and would be a differentiator for the brand, because like a lot of times we just wear clothes, but it doesn't necessarily add a certain meaning of additional value. And when it comes to the Japanese designs, I'm someone that, when I have the time, tries to just continue to do a lot of like self-exploration, a lot of like spiritual exploration, a lot of understanding of what the universe is and how it relates to us as individuals. And Yugen was actually one of the terms that I came across during that exploration or search, and it basically means to kind of have a understanding of the mysterious beauty of the universe. But in more layman's terms, it basically means it's actually very similar to Taoism or Taoism. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but like those, it's not even considered a religion, but those ways of life, for lack of a better term, is to basically, it really emphasizes just going with the flow. So you don't really, and removing ego from things. But Yugen in that aspect just talks about like being able to appreciate, for example, a sun setting and not necessarily wondering like, okay, now that it's set, where is it now, kind of thing. Like you just kind of, whatever life gives you, you just take it and appreciate it. And that's where it kind of falls into like having an understanding of the mysterious beauty of the world, where like stuff is always changing. But yeah, in terms of it being like Japanese designs, like anything under the sun that I feel like has element of spirituality, inspiration, or consciousness is something that I feel like if it looks nice, I'll definitely be open to putting it on a garment and making sure our customers can tap into it.
Okay. Because that was the first part. Because I remember from like your kind of like earlier collection, but then there's another one with it's I definitely have to go to an enunciation class. It's ESPWA. That's not
that's why. That's actually that's Haitian Creole.
All right, cool. Because I was like, just because Haiti shares like with that place, DR. Even though I don't go to DR because y'all treat my people, even though I'm not Haitian.
I like that solidarity.
The Haitians have raised me growing up, which is odd that Jamaicans and Haitians have issues because we're the popping people. But like, what does that mean? Because I don't even know how to say it, but that definitely has probably a deeper meaning too.
No, it definitely does. Espoir means hope.
Wow. Okay.
And I think what really got me into that, I think a lot of the brand, I think people may not realize is like, what you're seeing with the garments is like you're seeing me grow as an individual, and it's reflected through the designs that I make. So hope is like, not everyone had an easy year, you know what I'm saying? So I think this is definitely a year that tried me a bit, and that definitely was getting tested. And I think one thing I've learned, a quick aside, is like you don't grow unless you're going through struggle or some type of test. So I actually have a very positive connection with struggle now, where I feel like before it was like, fuck, why me? Why is this shit difficult? It's like, if it wasn't for struggle, I wouldn't be growing. The reason why I have difficulties because I'm building a brand, so it's not going to be easy. But Espoir means hope. And I think why hope is important is because a lot of times what leads to things that we deal with like anxiety, depression, all that stuff is having a negative perspective or a negative expectation of something happening, right? And I think hope is the opposite of that. So a lot of times we may have doubt or fear of, you know, us pursuing this thing working out, us talking to this girl or boy is not going to work out, us having this conversation that we need to have with a loved one for a long time is not going to go well, right? And what I notice is that when you have a doubtful mindset, it shows in your actions. But then if you have a faithful mindset or a belief that things are going to go well, it shows in your actions. So there's a quote where it's like, he who thinks he can and he who thinks he can and he who thinks he can't is usually right. Right? Basically saying like, if you think you can do it, you're going to then act in a way where you do it. But if you think you can't do it, you ain't even going to do shit really because you think I can't do it. So why would I put my best foot forward? Why would I risk blah, blah, blah? So when it comes to hope, there's actually more coming from this design actually that builds on it. But with this one, it's like when people have a negative mindset or they're in a rut or something like that, I think hope is a spark to be able to really get you to the opposite side of positivity, faith, confidence, etc. And I kind of look at it as like a momentum shift, especially when you have a lot of doubt or a large amount of doubt. And I think the step after hope is faith. And faith is like, no matter what, I've actually become very close to God in different forms throughout this time as well. I was someone that always viewed myself as like spiritual and looked at God as like, you know, from a universe standpoint, and I still do, but it's definitely had I definitely have a larger connection to it. And I've been like reading the Bible and stuff like that too. But I think one thing that you see hope is like, I actually saw like in one scripture, it was like God promises God is going to give you hope and a future, right? And I think the order of that phrasing is very important, where it's like before you have the hope, you can't have a good future. You know what I'm saying? Like if there's no hope for the good future, where the fuck is it going to come from?
That's
you know what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
Like anything that someone has accomplished, they at least had hope. Like you had to have had hope at the minimum. The people that do the best in the world, I think that's when they have an unwavering faith. Like no matter what, I'm finna get this. But I think that's where hope really comes from in terms of the meaning behind it. And I think that's why I really wanted to release it, especially during this time now where I think a lot of people can use like hope and at least a little bit of optimism. And I think that's just like, again, the spark to change the momentum from shit, I don't know if this is going to work to, maybe it could work too. You know what? I know it's going to work because XYZ scenario. So that's where I kind of got the inspiration to put hope into a fashion or design.
Because that was like basically like the 2020, spring, was it spring, fall, or was it winter?
For the release?
For this.
Fall, winter, yeah.
Winter. Uh-huh. Be always getting it wrong with that.
No, you should.
But my thing is, especially when it comes to what I always liked about your clothing from like the jump, as someone that used to make clothes, I'm kind of like on the way out right now. So like me and my partner, we're kind of like figuring out where we take our brand, but because of that, I understand how difficult it is to get high level garments and fabrics. You're one of the rare people from the start that your pieces were of quality fabric from the beginning. Like how much work did that take you to resource that? Because you have to understand that's the reason why it's always easy for me to either write articles like I did about it, to like tell people like, yo, this is like one of my top 5 like black owned brands that I wear clothing from. Like how did you even figure that out for these things?
Nah, and that's actually, I love when people mention the quality because I'm someone that's very hard on myself and I'm like, I even want better quality, you know what I'm saying? But then I'll have people reach out and it's like, yo, the quality's amazing. This is like, you could be charging more. Like, this shit is still good. I washed it. It's perfect. And it's like, I actually love that. And I think the process was definitely tedious. And I think it was something where you just kind of had to like look at a bunch of different, what do you call that shit? Like sources to see which ones give you the best quality. I would order like a bunch of shirts starting off. I would say like, this one's cool, but it's a little too rigid. This one's cool, but it's too soft. It might not like, be durable. So it was actually a bunch of trial and error, bunch of time, bunch of money, bunch of patience. But I do think like me being someone that is, I think words have power. So I was going to say me being a perfectionist, but I don't think you should. But me being someone that's very attention to detail and like meticulous, I wouldn't even feel comfortable putting something out that's not of significant quality. And I think what people consider like my standard, like what people would consider great, I'd be like, it's cool because that's just like
that makes sense.
Yeah. But I think it's also just how I was raised as well too. I think I was raised with a very strong fist of like, if you're not doing this well, then it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Which had its own consequences, as I'm realizing now. But I think one thing that definitely came out of it was like, there's this standard for myself where it's like, the whole world could think I'm doing something great. And I'm like, shit, is it even really good yet? So I think that's the thing that actually helped me, where it can be seen as a negative in some perspectives. I think it's something that really helps, especially when it comes to creating a product that you're producing to the world, where it'll always help you to have a stronger standard for quality than a lower standard for quality compared to the average consumer. But yeah, I think it was just having a strong determination to make sure shit is good and not being resilient and like consistent until I make sure I'm very confident in this product, and then I can market it. And I'm not someone that can feel comfortable marketing something that's not a good quality too. So that played a large part.
We realized that from your younger days. So before I go into like your how you kind of like show all shades of blackness and like the models that you use for the pieces, Free Soul. So I actually have this is a Yugen
Tom Rose from Concrete.
So I have like that.
Yeah.
And then I have a Free Soul, both in the same colorway. So I think Free Soul was one of the early ones at the same time as this one. And then the Hope one came recently. Where does that phrase come from? Because I feel like you said in the art, in the clothing, you're kind of speaking your essence of where you are in life. So what caused that?
So I think the thing that caused it was even the thing that told me like to leave my job, which was like, I think it really like, bro, I'm actually sending you some link. Let's talk after this, but I think there's a misconception in the world of, and niggas might think I'm loopy, but other people might vibe what I'm saying, of reality, right? Like I think a lot of times what bogs people down is this belief of a concrete reality. And I think one thing I've realized through a lot of exploration is like, reality doesn't really exist when you realize it, right? What we conceive to be reality is everyone's individual perception of what reality is. And a lot of times we're just like stuck in our head on like repeat loops of thoughts. So it's like, once you change your thought, that can't be reality if reality is changing 24/7. And reality can also not exist, because reality, in the word reality, is implied that it's objective and like only one. But if me and you are looking at something that is completely different and everyone has a different perception of it, how the hell can it be one thing at a time? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like through looking at those and just doing constant research, which I really like to do, I'm someone that's very into like, how does the mind work? How does like the body work? Stuff like that. I think I realized that like the goal in life, and I think it's so hard, especially with social media, to be in America, like a lot of just like social concepts we're boggled down by and told we must do and must not do or else we're good or bad people. I think the goal is to just be a free soul. And I think that's what really leads to ultimate peace and fulfillment and enlightenment. And I think there's a lot of people that tap into like Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts. Let me see who else would be a really good one. I think those are two big ones in this line of like ego versus like, you know, those kind of things. And I think one thing I realized is like, and when it came to starting Préval, and I think that was around the time when entrepreneurship wasn't super prevalent. I think I kind of noticed, and going back to the job, it's like people might, especially in the beginning, people were like, I'd get more praise for being at a job that makes me, at that point, that ass like depressed. And I wasn't even like familiar with the word until I was in that phase. And I was like, is this what niggas be talking about when they say depression? So I was at that point and I would get a lot of praise about it, right? But then when it came to me starting my brand again, I was at a point where entrepreneurship wasn't like as prevalent or like in the face of people. A lot of people I turned to would be like, it's not a good idea. I wouldn't do it if I was you, boom, boom, boom. And I think one thing that really taught me, and I'm actually very glad I didn't have necessarily anyone tell me that's a good idea, was that you can have a strong opinion and a belief of what is good. And 100 people will tell you it's wrong, right? But then you follow through with it and then you're actually right. And then those people come and say, oh shit, you was actually right the whole time. That's another way in which reality isn't real to a degree, because reality to an extent is other people's beliefs of what's right and wrong. So many people, while granted that's not necessarily the best example, it's like there's so many ways in which I'm seeing people's perception of what's right and wrong is truly false as fuck. And I think that's what helped me with the free soul concept. And even being at work, that was the biggest thing for me. A lot of people that were older than me were visibly unhappy and working a lot of hours. So I'm like, why the fuck would I stay here if I'm unhappy to work more hours and be more unhappy? Like the math wasn't adding up for me. And I feel like I had a strong expectation of once I graduate, I'll be happy. I have a good amount of bread. All that work is to the back of me. So I feel like just kind of seeing, I think at a certain point, I felt like, not to come off like a certain way, but I feel like a lot of people, while it seems like everyone in the world had it right, I realized like, maybe a lot of people have it wrong. And I actually may have it right in this moment. And I think those kind of thoughts is what led to the concept of what I thought was like a free soul, where it's like, as long as you're pursuing and doing things that you love and you're acting out a way of like just love and spreading kindness and peace and you're not harming anybody, do whatever the fuck you want. And I think that's really the definition of a free soul. But I think when you are born into this world, then you kind of, spend time in this world, you interact with certain people, there's these notions and beliefs of like, you have to have this, this, and this to be valid. Or if you don't have X, Y, Z, you're not valid. And I think that's just kind of like a quick summary of how it is when we kind of like, just matriculate into life. But I think those are things that really put us into like pockets of like, I must do this. I can't do this. I could do that. I can't do that. And then we end up living life. We don't realize it for other people's validation. And I think being in that position where everyone was like, damn, you got this amazing job, bro. Help me out. Let me get a position there. And I'm like, little do I hate this shit. So I think seeing that was like, it doesn't make sense for me to do stuff based on other people's opinion. And I think that whole scenario helped me realize that like, when it comes to what I want to do in life, at least, I should rely on my own individual thought and ideals and not anyone else's. The most I can do is talk to someone and maybe share it. But even if they share something that goes in opposition to what I believe, I'm going to have enough confidence in my thought and in my individual thinking to be like, you know what? I'm still going to go with what I believe anyway. So I think all that kind of goes into the element of what it means to be a free soul. And I think even that concept helped me throughout my beginning stages of Préval.
That was a lot of gems. I had to like sit and like digest it, because it reminds me of a lot of movies that we have come out. It kind of reminds me of some Matrix.
That's a big one.
Some Inception. Yeah. Some of those things, or even Interstellar. So I was just thinking Christopher Nolan. Like when you were speaking about reality, and I got to watch Tenet, but it's like a lot of things where we sometimes allow society to tell us what to do. And I think that's what, when it comes to our generation, the ones after us, Generation Z, Gen Z, is like, this is not what we're going to do. We're not going to just go to school and get like these massive amount of student loans and just be miserable for the rest of our life because you guys did it. That's stupid. Like, why would we just continue on the hamster wheel? Whereas like now it's just like, you look legit happy doing this, right? And I feel like that fulfillment is going to create this really great product, and that's going to create this team that you'll be manifesting. And eventually this will be, because words mean things. Yeah. So I can't say can't. I don't want to give any chance. That's a big thing too, yeah. Will. Words. And it's just like, this will be, I feel like your competitors, like, when you look at Tier NYC or you look at a visionary society. So it's not like rivalry. I feel like everyone Black can make it, because we all have different things. But it's like, I see that, right? But it's not just because I say that for you to imprint that on your reality. This is another reason why I don't really try to talk too much when it comes to like my friends doing things. It's like, if you wanted me to help you do things, I'll do it. But I'm not going to try to put my biases, my projections onto you, because words mean so much. And the thing that's like so amazing with you is like, everyone said this wasn't a good idea. Then you made this, and then it fills a need that people actually gravitate to. And now all of a sudden, people are going to want to say it's a good idea. It's kind of similar to what Dave Chappelle was talking about when it came to the Chappelle Show and his 18 minutes of just like, people are going to try to jux you. They're going to try to like rip you off. They try to take advantage of you, and they're going to try to tell you that you're wrong. And you got to stay kind of like committed, like, but I'm not. And I feel like that was kind of like the similar thing that you kind of just convey, where it's like, imagine if you were still working at that job and I'm not able to wear this sweater or this beanie, and you're not able to wear this shirt. There's a need. I'd probably be wearing some other freaking thing. And I feel like that is what we need. We need people to be able to be like, this is what I want to do. And I feel like that shows in the work. So that's really dope, bro.
No, I agree. And I think that's one of those things where it's like, you actually brought up an interesting point. And you mentioned I'm someone that likes to, I don't like to use the term debate, but discuss schools of thought.
Older, because,
No, as they too, I didn't even know I used to debate that much when I was younger, but I could definitely see it. I didn't notice that.
Because I don't want the word debate to be
it could come off away.
To me, argument is like when you're not really having a healthy conversation. But when you were having a debate, it wasn't to like make people look stupid. It was like you were really passionate about it. Whereas like when you were debating back and forth if you didn't come with facts to go against you, it's like, yo, get out of my face. That's what I meant. So I don't want it to be like negative.
And I think that's actually something that helped me in life too, where I feel like, and this is kind of a quick aside, but I think I'm someone that like has a thought and I'm like, I want to expand on it a bit and get back to it. But I think one thing that helped me too was like growing up in like, you know, a traditional Haitian household, there was a lot of old school perceptions of what makes a good person and like a good boy or like a good teenager or like, you know, a respectable man and what doesn't. And I think a lot of them were very like, in respect to Haitian culture, warped in thinking where it made absolutely no fucking sense. And I feel like because I was someone that wanted to do certain things, I was constantly in opposition when I went home, like, nah, you can't do this, nah, don't do this, nah, don't do that. And I think at an early age, I had to like come against that fight of like, am I going to do what I generally believe is true and like what I should be doing? Or am I going to do what people tell me is the right thing to do? And I feel like when you have to kind of take your own view of how things should go and put it above your parents, which when growing up is like, those are the highest kind of views of like, all right, you're saying this, so it might be true. I feel like having that as like an experience, I think really helped me. And I feel like as a kid, it was always like, if this doesn't make sense to me, I'm not just going to follow it for the sake of people saying it. So I'd be like, why? And if you didn't have a good reason why, I'm not, till you tell me why, I'll follow you. Let me say follow, I don't like that term. I'll do what you think is a good idea if you give me a good reason. But if it's not, I don't want to do it. And I think from constantly doing that, you realize how much stuff so many people do just for the sake of it's what other people say to do. Like when people tell you to do something and they don't have an actual concrete reason, the only reason is for the sake of tradition or normality, which I think holds people back. And it's like, you may like that. Like I said, do whatever the hell you want to do as long as you don't harm people. Just don't tell me what to do or what not to do. And I feel like through those experiences growing up, it was like when it came to this turning point of like, do I stay in corporate? Do I kind of do my own thing? It was like the same thing where it's like, I could listen to like the voices of the external world saying, yo, man, you come from this background. The chances of you getting this job is crazy, like, you know, to begin with. So why ever give it up? But then I think having that, you know, that practice and that callous of like, yo, this is something you believe in. The world may be saying this, but you know that in your heart of hearts, if you don't follow what you want to do inside, you're going to regret it. And I think that desire to avoid regret is what really pushed me for sure as well. And I think that's like a huge thing that gets me where it's like, I know if I don't act in a way that truly aligns with my inner spirit, I'm not going to like it. So I think that's something with just like business, personal relationships, like a lot of ways, I think it's just is very helpful. So, yeah.
Man, if you were to tell me like, I don't know, 14 years ago, I was going to have like this level of like insight from you, it's like, and it's not to say that you weren't insightful, but like how you're bringing it all together. It's kind of like one of those full circle moments where the protagonist kind of like learns all these lessons and then it comes like the final challenge. And then it's like, yo, I get this. Yo, you can't beat me. I think that's what it is for you.
And I'll say word to everything, bro. Anybody I talk to from back in the day, they'll be like, damn, nigga, you changed. Even since college, they'll be like, is this the same? Like, you changed a lot. And I think that's one thing I noticed too. A quick statement. I think many people, let me not speak on people. I think for me, myself, I think one thing I always did was prioritize growth. And I think that's what helps me is like I say, I'm always doing research. I'm always trying to, you know, grow and learn. And I feel like at a young age, I was always asking myself, like, what is the meaning of life? And I felt like if you didn't know what the meaning of life was, every day you're living while not knowing the meaning is kind of like aimless to a degree, right? Where it's like, if you have a written prompt for an essay and you don't read the prompt, but you're just writing the essay, it's like, what the fuck are you writing about? You have no direction. Are you even answering the proper question?
Yeah.
So I think having that thing in my mind where it's like, if I don't know what I'm living for, I'm kind of doing it wrong naturally because I'm just moving without a direction. I was constantly asking myself, like high school, college, once I graduated, like, what is the meaning of life objectively? If I could find one, what's the meaning of my life? And I think the objective meaning of life that is very hard to debate is to be the best version of yourself. And I think for me, the best version of myself is growing every day, being as much of a free soul or independent thinker as I can be, being someone that has as much love and, you know, positivity in me versus like negativity and envy and things of that sort. And I think those are the things that I try to just keep at the forefront and make sure I'm like constantly progressing because, yeah, there's like a lot of things on a daily basis and like that can really just bring you back or maybe, you know, distract you, make you sidetrack. So I feel like honestly, I couldn't necessarily see the connection when I was that young, but I feel like constantly asking myself, like, what is the purpose? I would even be on like a date, like, yo, what do you think is the purpose of life? And I would know there was one time I'll never forget. And this girl was like, what? Don't be asking me no question like that. I don't want to talk about that right now. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I thought that was kind of weird, but it's like, that's just the way I think. And I feel like even when it comes to, I'm not good at making regular conversation. Like if we talk and we link for like 3 minutes, we're going to be having like you said, a debate, for lack of a better term, for a while.
Yeah, but I feel like that's what makes you a unique person. Because exactly. I know how to, and I feel like that's what's good. And this is not just me just trying to like praise you for like no reason, but I think because of fashion, I have to do like kind of like personality things. I have to master small, medium, and large talk, right? So small talk is like, I'm not really flexing any wit, any of my knowledge. I'm just like, I'm just trying to make a connection. How do we network and all that type of stuff. But when you kind of like dig deep, it's like, this conversation right now is making me have to think. There's some times that I've asked myself that question of what is life about, but did I really dig deep, right? And I think that's the thing where it's like, we run away from the inner child. And that's the most important thing I've kind of realized with you. You've never run away from the inner child. You still have him right there, shotgun with you when it comes to a lot of things. And a lot of people don't do that in life. A lot of people are like, I can't do it. And they're like 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And it's like, I can't do it because everyone around me voice is louder than my own, but you're in your own body. Why are you letting those people? And I think that's what's exceptional with your journey.
And I think that goes into another thing that I recently discovered, which is like, and let me know if this makes sense off the rip, but it's like, the world you perceive yourself to be in is not true. Like the world you perceive yourself to be in is actually in your mind. Does that make sense?
Because it projects out to the world, and that's what's going to manifest for you.
Exactly. But I think it's also like, for example, let's say if in that scenario you brought up, someone's 30, 40, they have people that are saying like, oh, you can't do it, you can't do it. And I know this book I read, it was the last chapter. It was actually a mandatory read for all incoming students at Carnegie Mellon. And it was basically about this dude that was a professor at the school, and I think he ended up getting terminal cancer. And then he basically it was really a book about just pursue your dreams, bro. Like life is short. He was basically showing like he's got cancer suddenly, and he's glad he was able to, pursue his dreams. But now that he knows he has cancer and like life is limited, he's going to do even more. And I think from reading that book, I'm going again. I feel like I'm having a hard time. It's okay,
because I know I'm going to keep us on track, but like I want you to go into that stream of consciousness. Keep going. Yeah.
So reading that book, I think it taught me like, you can, when it's a wall, right? A wall, it's like, he basically said it's brick walls in life. And those are the hurdles you have to get through, right? Like someone can think of, okay, I want to get into the music industry, but I don't know anyone that's a producer or anyone in the industry. That's a brick wall, right? So relating it back to your example, I'm 40. I have everyone around me saying, I can't do it. I can look at that as like a brick wall and it's like, fuck it, that means I'm not meant to do it. Or in the book, he says brick walls are basically there for you to show the world how much you want it. And you're supposed to knock down every brick wall. So I feel like even going back to me when people were saying, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. I think at that moment, I just looked at it as like, these are people that are bringing me down. But looking at it now, it's like, this is a test of, like you said, not everyone's going to see, back to Dave Chappelle, see what you have. Not everyone's going to see the vision, but that's just life. This is one of the tests where it's like, people's doubt is one of the many brick walls you'll come against, where it's like, but it's also based on how do you perceive it, because it's coming out of your mind, where it's like, I can perceive you to be here, but all the different ways in which I choose to perceive you is up to me. You know what I'm saying?
That's correct.
Like I can perceive you as someone that's a go-getter. Someone can perceive you as differently. It's like there's so many different ways in which someone can perceive you. And now I have a different perception of Skip, right? When it comes to people that are saying you can't do it, I can think, damn, this person's very educated. He or she has all the qualities to have a very informed decision on what I should and shouldn't do. Or I can say, even if they have all those things, I know myself more than them, and this is God telling me, this is my intuition. How could this man who knows nothing about my day-to-day life and the fact that I'm miserable as shit right now tell me that I should stay in this situation? If you really knew me, you would say, run the fuck the other direction.
That's a fact.
So I feel like when you see those things, it's like, people can't even really give you advice on your own life to a degree.
To be honest.
Some shit like finances help you pick the right credit card, maybe, but it's like, what to pursue as a dream, that's really dangerous to put in someone else's hands, bro, because nobody knows the little urges that God is nudging you when you wake up in the morning. Nobody knows when you're going to work. It's like, fuck, this shit is miserable. And maybe everyone else doesn't like it. But for you, it's like a strong level of like, this shit don't make sense for me personally. So I feel like, just kind of going back to what you said, I feel like with the 30-40 example, life in general is largely based on how you choose to look at it. And I think a lot of times it goes back to there not being any real objective reality. I think we let the world give us perceptions on how to look at stuff because the world just told us this is the way to look at it. And I think one thing that helped me, and it goes back to being a free soul, is that a lot of what we view as reality or moral for a degree is like stuff that we just agreed on as a human collective. But there's many times that we'll agree on something and later on it'll be wrong, right? Even stuff that's rooted in a quote unquote scientific fact will then end up being wrong years down the line. But when it comes to stuff like what's the right career or like, you know, what's the right way to act in this scenario, that's literally all opinionated. But because there's so many opinions backing up one opinion, we think it's to be true. Yeah. But that don't mean, and I think that's what helped me going back to traveling. You could be in one country. That was one big thing for me. So growing up in Haitian household, earrings is seen as kind of like, you know, not the thing to do. It's kind of like
feminine,
ghetto, feminine, exactly, yeah. And then I went to Indonesia and everybody had on hoop earrings. Every single man. So I'm like, in this world, in Haiti, it would have been like, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you have an earring on? In this other country, it's like, everyone has earrings on. So I think those things, while it can be small to some people, it shows me that in this one country, this collective mass of people have a gun-ho, you cannot change their perception that this is wrong. And in another country, they have a very open perception of this is absolutely right. And I feel like those things showed me like, who's to say he's right, who's to say he's wrong? Everyone's just doing what exactly, reality. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's the thing too, even at this point now, I don't even know if the word reality can be very tricky, right? Because it's like by saying people live in their reality, you're kind of giving merit to there being one objective, you know what I'm saying, scenario. Even if you don't believe that to be the case, I feel like the word reality ingrained in it is a belief of this is the, you know what I'm saying, ultimate or finite reality.
We'll probably talk about that a lot more, but just for the sake of this, I won't use reality. I'm just going to use something from like Young Justice. I'll say like universe. Everyone technically is manifesting their own vision of the space around them. As so it's kind of like 7 billion or trillion universes because we're all looking at things. We can be looking at the same building like you said earlier, but it's going to look different because of our different individual experiences to get to that point. But I gotta say, this has been one of the most like deep interviews. But before we kind of get to like the ending credits, I do want to say you did touch on some things that, in addition to your line, there's other things you want to do. You don't have to state them because I don't want to ruin it. But obviously, you're gonna just not only do clothing because I think after a while you're doing really good in clothing. You can do other things. Are there other creative kind of like endeavors you kind of like studying and planning on?
I think everything I plan to do is creative to a degree, but I think a lot of it will be based on just continuing the overall mission and vision of Préval, which is just spreading inspiration, spirituality.
So it'll be subdivisions under it.
That's a great question. I don't think it depends on how I want to roll it out. It may be separate stuff.
Okay.
But I do think it's one of those things where Préval will be like kind of the crux or like the main base that expands to other things.
I don't want to jinx it because that could be so I was just kind of like envisioning, since the mission is connected to that name, which is the legacy, which is connected to you, like where was that going? But I'm excited. I can't wait to see more collections, more lines. But before we head out, give your socials, like your social, your website socials and all that stuff.
So the brand Instagram is Préval Official, Preval Official. Personal joint is Jay Preval, Jay Preval, Preval. Website Préval Official. So Préval, again, Preval official.com. Check it out. You'll see a lot of dope written pieces, a lot of things that give further explanation to the meaning behind the brand, a lot of explanation behind the motivation, as well as a lot of the pieces that we have available on the site. So definitely check it out, tap in. And even if you don't feel, the need to patronize, there's still a lot of content on there that I really want a lot of people to tap into. So
that's a fact. There's a lot of limited stock. I'm actually on the website right now because I'm reading some things. So, because it was a sale from the Cyber Monday thing. So, make sure you get the pieces while they're there, because you're probably not going to get it unless it's like the next restock for that. But, guys, it's been a pleasure talking to my guy. I'm Skip from BK. You can find me on everything like Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Clubhouse now. Interesting.
Nice. I heard about that.
And we'll talk about that later. And this is powered by Cove Alpha and Slept on Creatives. So, shout out to those people. Slept on Creatives with the editing and the visuals. Until we meet again, thank you. Make sure you buy the clothes, guys. Peace.
All right, y'all.
Here we go. Too much of a Marvel fan. I gotta have these post-credit scenes. I know. But yeah, just big shout out to Jobert. Constantly correcting me because, when it comes to the Haitian kind of pronunciations, I'm terribly American. So show love to Jay Preval, amazing individual who I love his clothing line. Like as we speak right now, I'm wearing it as I'm re-recording this post-credit scene. So if you want to keep a note of my bro, is Jay Preval on Twitter and Instagram. So it's JayPreval _, and that's for both Twitter and Instagram. Also for his clothing line is Préval Official on Instagram. So it's Preval official. I'm not even going to spell official. If you don't know how to spell it, I am sorry. And his website is prevalofficial.com. And while you're finding all of those things, he has great pieces. Make sure you're tapped in with me. Skip from BK on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr. I got some things coming out too. When they will come out, I have no idea, but I'm gonna try my best to let you know. Also, shout out to the people in Slept On Creatives. Such a talented production company. You can find them on Instagram on Slept On Creatives. You can find them on Twitter at SO_creatives. That's SO_creatives on Twitter. And, last but not least is Convo Alpha. That is where, my articles are usually housed and podcasts. And, I'm going to be collaborating with a lot of people when it comes to, music and other topics and stuff like that. I want to get more talent. So if you know any writers or anybody that wants to collaborate with me, just, reach out to me on Convo Alpha. So see you soon. See you for the next episode. Be safe. Be well. Peace.